Welcome back to another episode of the Healing Chamber. This is Layla, and today we are talking about how to stop giving attention to distractions and chaos. There is a lot of chaos recently. There has been so many events. Most of those events are man-made. A lot of them are created with the purpose of distracting people, the goal is to basically keep the masses in fear, in survival mode, distracted, because it's easier to control someone when they are in fear or they're in survival mode and they are basically operating from the lowest state of consciousness, which is like the level 1 of the 7 levels of consciousness. And so it's basically a game right now of attention and focus. And so if you're seeing this episode, if you're listening right now, you're probably really advanced during your spiritual journey. And you've probably noticed that the more that you put your attention somewhere, the more, those things get bigger or more intense. So you have to be really mindful where you put your focus right now. And sometimes it's very tempting to look at what's going on and, especially with, TikTok or like celebrities, those stories, those events, politics, religion, everything is man-made. Everything is man-made. It's a game that was created a long time ago. And so when people put their focus and attention on these fake stories, fake events, their energy is being harnessed that way. So it's a way of giving away not just your energy, but your power as well. And at the same time, you can look at something without being emotionally absorbed and triggered. And that's the difference. If you're, it doesn't mean that you never have to look at the news ever, You can look at it from time to time just to see what's up, But if you find yourself in a space where you're being triggered by it, that's actually a clear sign to remove your energy, to, pull back your energy, basically, pull it back to yourself, and to ground yourself and to regulate your nervous system. And it's a practice. It's a lifestyle. It's not something you do just once and that's it. You're perfect and you never have to regulate, your nervous system. You have to do it over and over. But obviously, the more you're going to do it, you're going to notice that the less you're going to have to do it and you're going to feel more centered. And when life is going to be throwing things at you, you're going to be able to manage them in a very mature and responsible way because you're going to feel centered. You're going to feel anchored into the reality, So the number one way, the best way, I would say, to make sure that you're not letting yourself being distracted by your 3D circumstances. There are many different ways to do it, but the number one way to do it is to ignore it. Whenever you're seeing a behavior from someone that you don't like, obviously, besides children, do not ignore children. But I'm saying, if you're dealing with adults, if someone is being disrespectful or if you're in some sort of romantic connection and there's a behavior that you don't like about that person, you're going to notice that when you ignore the 3D, because it's an illusion, it's light, it's fake, it's a reflection of what's happening inside of you. So when you're actually taking back your power, you're taking back your energy and your focus, and instead of arguing, because arguing is so dumb when you think about it, you're basically arguing with yourself. That's like looking at yourself in the mirror and arguing. It's going to end when you decide it's going to end. Because if you're arguing with yourself, well, that's what it is when you argue with someone. That's why when you see people arguing with other people on social media in the comments, I'm just like looking at them like, what are they doing? Like, you waste so much like energy and life force power by arguing with strangers online. Like, why would you do that? You have things to do. You have a purpose. You have like beauty treatments. Like, you don't have a life. You don't have something to do. Like, whenever I see these like gorgeous women arguing with these dusty bums like in the comments, I'm like, what? Like, just ignore these guys. Just ignore them. First of all, they're possessed by some poverty demons, so like, you're gonna argue until you freaking die. Like, don't argue with them. Ignore them. They don't exist. They're not real. Bye. See ya. And another way to also, I would say, transmute circumstances or chaos is to laugh at it. And of course, it depends of the situation. But like, for example, like, if you have a neighbor that's just annoying you, like whatever, this neighbor is feeding off your negative energy. It's feeding off you being like triggered, like angry, So instead, when you start laughing, you're going to notice the shift. There's going to be an energetic shift. When you start laughing at people that are trying to trigger you, I'm telling you, they're going to disappear by themselves. It's insane. They're just going to like poof, gone. Like, because they're feeding off, even narcissists, that's what they do. They're feeding off your suffering, your misery, like you being negative or you being, in a bad position or not feeling good, but they feed off of that energy. So like, if you start laughing at them, or just like laugh, like when they say something, of course, the first thing you want to do is to like ignore them and go no contact. Like, you just don't even want to have those people in your quantum field. But like, let's say it's someone that, I don't know, like a neighbor, right? You just see them from time to time and whatever. And you're gonna move soon anyway, so you don't care. You can laugh when you see them. Like, just laugh. They're gonna be so freaking confused about why you're laughing. I swear, it's the funniest thing. And they're gonna be intimidated as well, because they're gonna be like, why is she laughing? Like, what is going on? So yeah, those are the best ways to deal with something. And if it's something, I would say, more serious, because there are things that we cannot laugh about. Like, let's say when that just happened recently, the hurricane, right? So instead of being triggered emotionally and be like, oh my god, because they were not subtle when it came to the whole like fear mongering thing. They would tell people, like, literally, like, politicians would tell people that if they would not evacuate, they would die. And some people could not physically evacuate because sometimes they could not move, or sometimes it would be like financially, like a lot of people were stuck there. So the best thing to do if you're in a position like that, which is, I would say, a bit more extreme, and it's first of all, it's hard to ignore. I get it. Like, it's really hard to ignore, and it's hard to laugh at it, of course. So the next way, I would say, to deal with that is to ground yourself and to focus on the end, to focus on what you actually want to experience. So I don't know if you noticed, but I think the hurricane was like a category 6 before it landed, but when it landed, it was like less than that. It was like a 3 or 4, like depending obviously where people were. But that's just an example of it. Like, can you imagine being in your house and be like, oh my god, I'm gonna die, and then the hurricane is at a category 3 when it lands, like next to your house? So it's like you've basically just feeded the matrix, the fear matrix, even more, with you panicking, crying, being, all over the place and triggered for no reason. But that's what it is. That's what the illusion is. It's like, there's no reason to panic. Like, there's a very small percentage of situations where you should actually panic. I would say if like a wild animal is chasing you, I would say, you know what? That's actually the right time to panic, like run, right? But in most instances, in most circumstances, I would say like 95% of them, there are always solutions. And when we panic, when we are triggered, when we're in survival mode, when we're surrounded with people who feed off, on our negative energy, right? Or we keep listening to the news, we keep listening to politicians, we keep listening to these like fake actors, people who are paid to make you in fear, basically. You're losing and wasting so much time and so much energy. And it's fine if you've done it in the past. Like, you don't have to like judge yourself and beat yourself up. Like, it's done. Like, whatever, you actually, the worst thing you can do is to judge yourself, because then it's keeping you in that lower state of consciousness, because you're like, no, like you've done those things, or you've thought those ideas, or whatever, like thoughts, you had those beliefs, right, when that happened, because you were in a state of consciousness where you thought this was real. You thought it was reality. You thought, this was the way maybe your family programmed you. So it's fine. Like, who freaking cares? It does not matter, because now you're aware and you're not doing it anymore. So let's just go to the next chapter. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that is huge. This is something that has to be mastered before you can get to your next level, before you can have all the things that you want, before you attract all the people who love you, for you, all the people who are going to support you while you're fulfilling your life purpose. This is like master, the level of mastery, like number one. This has to be mastered. This is the first level. When you stop putting your energy and focus and attention on things that you do not want, that you do not like, or putting your attention and energy on other people's lives. Like, it's fine to do it from time to time, but you have to notice, you have to be mindful. Am I creating more, or am I consuming more? This is the huge shift, because most people are consumers. But then you cannot be a consumer and then complain that you don't have the life of a creator or a goddess or a creatrix, however you want to call that person, a digital priestess. You cannot complain and say, why don't have these things and blah, blah, blah. Well, because you're not on the same energetic frequency. Like, it's not the same. But once you're on that frequency of being mindful of where you're putting your attention, and you're focused on creating more than you consume, because you can also consume, you can watch TV, whatever. But if you're consuming more than you're creating, then you're wasting your life, you're wasting your energy, you're wasting your life force, and you're giving your power away unknowingly. And there is this shift at some point when you're moving from that space of being a consumer to a goddess, to a creatrix, to a creator. When you're going through that transition, sometimes, I would say most people, things can get really intense. Usually this is the period of time where we're isolated, or, we're in the, what's the name? I don't have the name right now, but whatever. There's a name for that period of time. It's not Dark Night of the Soul, but something like that. You're basically in isolation. There's going to be a lot of people from your past that are trying to reach out, because they're trying, energetically, they can feel that you're leveling up, and they're trying to pull you back into that old space, right? Or you might have a lot of distractions, like I said, neighbors. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, like, my podcast at the beginning, like, every time I would start recording, I would have, like, people, like, you guys, I used to live at the forest, and people find, like, ways to, like, disturb me, and I was like, how is that possible, So I would have people, like, knock at my door, like, they would make all these noises, and I was living in a house. I was like, how is that even possible to, like, disturb me in a house in the forest, But I didn't know that, but I was going through that transition, and what was happening is that I was attacking myself. I was creating those psychic attacks. My womb was basically, sending those people. It was like shadow people. the sooner you clear your womb space, your sacral chakra, the faster you're gonna notice. It's gonna be like an alchemy. You're gonna alchemize all these things, and you're gonna get to the other side where your life is gonna be so peaceful and so abundant. You're gonna be like, this has been possible this whole time, and like, what is happening, but this is just a reminder that there's a period of time where you're kind of like in the middle and it gets intense, but you have to alchemize it and transmute it every time by, like I said, laughing at it, ignoring it is the best way, or by literally being mindful about where you're placing your energy and attention. That's it. So if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, let me know, and I'll see you tomorrow for our next episode.